Hi everybody, I'm out here with my crazy dogs. They keep photobombing me, and so I just thought, hey, why not do a video about them? So my dogs, hopefully they'll pop back on the camera so you can see them, are Karakachans. It's Boopsy and Khaleesi. Karakachans have a really interesting history that can help us to learn how to live within the wheel of life. So stay tuned and I'll tell you their story. Hi, it's Laura Giles with Pan Society. Boopsy and Khaleesi and I thank you for being here. Aren't they amazing? I actually have 3 Karakachans, and if you have never heard about them, it's because they have been on the endangered species list. So Karakachan dogs, sheep, and horses all come from Bulgaria, and they're some of the oldest breeds in Europe. The Karakachan people were nomadic, and they kept their dogs, sheep, and horses from being crossbred because of their lifestyle. And in the 1950s, the farming practices were taken over by the government, and the government imported sheep with finer fleece. So they were inbred with the Karakachans. They also moved the sheep out of the mountains, which is their natural habitat, so their productivity declined. And as the sheep declined, there was less need for horses and dogs too. The horses were crossbred to improve their qualities, and they were sold for meat. Yee. Basically, you know, they have qualities that we don't appreciate. So they were kind of looked at as, I don't want to say worthless because that sounds awful, but kind of worthless. And the same thing happened with the dogs. With the loss of their lifestyle, the dogs had nothing to do. And these are livestock guardian dogs, so no livestock meant that they weren't useful. So the government tried to exterminate them, and they were selling them for fur. So some survived in the state livestock farms up in the mountains, and it used to be that each sheep herder would have up to 100 dogs to help guard the flocks, and that was changed so that they could only have 2. So to give you an idea of how many sheep that is, 1,200 sheep can be effectively guarded by just 4 dogs. And now there's only 600 to 700 Karakachan dogs in Bulgaria and only around 200 registered dogs in the USA. So what does that have to do with animism? Well, I think there's a lot that we can learn from this history. First is that in animism, we respect all life. So it's not about which life is most productive, prettiest, or most desirable, because animals don't exist for us. We all exist for each other. So my opinion is that we don't get to decide who we like and who we don't. Second is that if you look at things in context, things can look really different. It might be that the sheep didn't produce well in the lowlands, but they aren't lowland sheep. And crossbreeding them to improve them could be a huge mistake because they're good at what they're good at. And this is how we get big dogs who are prone to dysplasia. Another thing is that stories like this bring out pity. It pulls at people's heartstrings and they want to go out and get a Karakachan. These are livestock guardian dogs. They're not meant to live in apartments or in crates. They're huge. They're between 100 and 125 pounds. They need huge spaces to run around in, and they need something to do. So it's not a kindness to take a working animal and let it sit around and get fat. In Pennsylvania, there's a law that says if you leave your dog outside in 32 degrees or lower, which is what it is now, more than 30 minutes, you could be guilty of a felony. It's felonious animal abuse. Now, I'm all for animal protection, but all animals are not created equally. All animals need shelter, yes, of course. But if you bring your goat into the house in the winter because it gets cold, the kindest thing you can do is to leave it in for the rest of the season because it loses its ability to regulate its temperature outside. And lots of livestock, Karakachan dogs included, grow a winter undercoat and it acts as insulation. It's the same thing as having a down comforter. So no matter how cold the room is, that down will keep the body heat inside as long as the wind's not blowing. The same thing happens in the summer. It may seem like they have too much fur and they're dying in the summer sun, but actually their fur protects them from getting sunburned. And the winter undercoat falls out and their hair acts as heat diffusers to keep them cool. Now, obviously, there are exceptions when it gets too cold for any animal or too cold or too hot for any animal. But one of the reasons that the Karakachan sheep, horses, and dogs survived is that they're able to hide out in the mountains. They ate, slept, and mated there. So they're somewhat wild because the landscape's very wild. So I'm all for protecting animals against cruelty, but when we don't look at the big picture and see things in their natural context, we can come to some really ineffective conclusions. That animals aren't people, plants are not people. They don't have the same needs or desires or cares that people do, and we often look at them as people. I believe that we do them more kindness by appreciating them in their entirety and allowing them to be who they are rather than trying to make them into people. So everything needs everything else. Sheep needed dogs to have something to do. Predators give the dogs something to do. The landscape gives everybody a home. And if you change any one of those, the whole dynamic shifts, as you see by the change of the government taking over farming practices. It almost led to the collapse of at least 3 ancient species. So we have about 200 Karakachans here in the USA, and that was done as a conservation effort. But truly, for all of the Karakachan species to survive, they need to thrive in their homeland, as they did for thousands of years. And maybe that's why the exportation of these beautiful dogs isn't really happening anymore. I'm not sure I did the right thing by buying an endangered species. I did it for the conservation effort. But since they're not actually in Bulgaria, I wonder about the consequences. Actually, since Boopsie's spayed, there really aren't any long-term consequences for the breed. And most owners don't breed, and I wonder if they have the same thoughts. Anyway, I hope that I've inspired you to consider the big picture when making decisions about how to interact with nature. You know, we're all voters, we all make the world we live in together, and if we respect what's unique about us all and allow things to be as they are, as long as they aren't abusive or dangerous, I think we make the world a better place. We make better choices for ourselves and others. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you on the next PAN video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.